Let it go for about 20 seconds.
Throw that.
So do you want to do this here?
Let's start in just a minute here. We're just waiting for some people to come on the room. But I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, the syncretism sign, that's great. You want to take off? No, let's do it here, over here.
Okay?
Oh, we want the syncretism sign, do we?
Yeah, let's do the syncretism. Well, folks back in Canada, I've been looking forward to this moment to meet Santos Bonocci, one of the foremost freedom fighters in the world. And I know you, like millions of people around the world, were watching the Trucker Convoy in Ottawa, watching the largest, most peaceful protest ever held in the world. And I want to ask you, your president, what did you think of the Ottawa Truck Convoy that happened?
That's the sort of stuff that I love, brother. You know, I grew up 20 minutes from where Ned Kelly lived. Now, Ned Kelly is Jesse James of Australia. You know that, right?
Yes.
Movies have been made about this guy. You know, he's iron.
Says Bertha Talks wants you to begin the video.
No, we're live. It's okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, good.
So I grew up with a Ned Kelly spirit. You know, I was always free-born, and when I saw that, I was just so inspired. Now, I didn't know, no one knew what the result was going to be. We know now that they were kicked out, and the mighty arm of
The tyrannical government.
Yeah, I mean, that was likely going to happen, wasn't it? But at least people are alive and loving freedom and showing it. That's what we've got to do.
One of the most exciting things is I was on the streets of Ottawa. Now, I'm a former truck driver myself, and I decided to step back from the industry. I gave up a very good contract and some very good money because our company and the government was already indicating that we were going to have to make a choice of healthcare that went against our personal beliefs.
Yeah.
So in August, I stepped back, not knowing what would happen. But as we started to see it unfold, the government then issued a January 15th mandate. This is when the momentum started to gather. And truck drivers at first were thought to be going to Ottawa for themselves, but they ended up going there for an entire country.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have the freedom to choose our health care and make choices, bodily autonomy, we are not free people.
No, exactly. They made that known, they made that clear to the world, you know. And these are the people who work hard, keeping us alive, bringing product from city to city, you know. They work amazing hours. Truck drivers are to be commended for period, just for their position. But for them to make that stand, that made me,
It was interesting because at one point we were the heroes. The frontline workers were the heroes, the doctors, the nurses, the firefighters, the EMS, the police officers, and the truck drivers, the farmers. And how quickly that narrative changed as they started to press us. And then all of a sudden truck drivers became expendable. And it was necessary for us to go there, not just for ourselves, but for Canadians. Because anytime you're afraid of the government, it's tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
But if the government becomes afraid of you, that's liberty.
Exactly, and that's what they're showing the government. A good general knows that it doesn't matter if you lose this battle or that battle. Alexander the Great, he lost battles, but he always won the war. And we, the free humans of God's creation, we win.
Yeah.
Tyranny does not win. Tyranny has no place in this reality. It has been an interposition. Interlopers have inserted themselves in this timeline, and it's illegal and unlawful, and they're going to be evicted. And we are the ones that will do
I think justice will prevail. We just don't know the time and the space in which it's going to be delivered. But I think we saw the worst of what we suspected. We've always held our governments in somewhat of a suspicious manner as to what their ultimate motives were. We now, through the process of the pandemic, COVID, it actually pulled back the curtain and revealed the evil that is lurking behind that.
They did us a favour.
They did us a favor, well said, because we saw the likes of an organization, an unelected organization at the top of the food chain, the WEF, mandating into all of the countries around the world. And it's amazing that our leaders haven't spoken up against that. Why is it that leaders are afraid to speak up against this?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about not losing their position, their jobs, their reputation, and of course everybody's getting a little bit of cash. You know how it works, don't
We
you?
have said for a long time, follow the money.
Yeah.
And there's been more money spent on behalf of Big Pharma and the politics of Big Pharma than we've ever seen in our lives. This corruption is far deeper. And I know you're a spiritual person. We are fighting a battle of a spiritual,
Yes.
of an epic spiritual level.
Epic. But we are Jedis of old, you know, we've been through this before, and when the time comes, when the final battle, the real Armageddon, then the war shall be won, and righteousness will prevail. It always does.
I think in the end it's going to look like, I've heard a lot of great speakers say, it's going to look like we're going to lose in the end.
Mm-hmm.
But then the win will come.
Yeah.
How do you encourage? I mean, did this not bring you back to all the years that you've been freedom fighting?
Mm-hmm.
You've got a lot of followers out there, and you've sacrificed a lot in the process of fighting for freedom.
Yeah, been to jail twice unlawfully in Australia, been harassed by sheriffs and policemen and lawyers and the media all over Australia painted me as a criminal on the run, you know, just tried to, they made these edited interviews of me in front of the court, and, you know, of course they make you look like an idiot, but I had my own cameraman there filming the whole thing, so the true story was told in the background. So, I mean, they're exposing themselves, you know, they're not only the government, but the media as well. They are doing us a favour. They're looking more and more stupid.
Why you brought up the media? Because I went there as an ex-truck driver and reported on an alternative media called Winnipeg Alternative Media, WAM, which is what we're streaming on right now. And we knew that if we didn't go, the story would not be told properly. It would be concealed, it would be portrayed. We saw the government, we saw the Prime Minister label us as Nazis, race haters, like every name. In fact, before we arrived, he called us the fringe minority with unacceptable views, keeping in mind that this was a Prime Minister who once said that democracy was the breath of a country, that you couldn't breathe if you weren't free. And here he was. And then, of course, he suddenly came down with COVID. And all of these things, you know, they just parlayed themselves into seeing the government for what it really was.
They've exposed themselves. This is just beautiful. You know, the more we put pressure on them, the more they're doing this. I mean, how many people say to you, I've heard this so many times since I was a child, you know when a politician's lying, don't you?
His lips are moving.
His lips are moving. Now, these same people, they're waiting in line because the government told them they've got to put this experiment in their bodies. The same people who say, you know when a politician's lying, don't you? When their lips are moving, and yet they're lining up. But what's happened is, because they've seen the consequences, those ones that were asleep now, they've been jolted into waking up. So there's more of that demographic of the sleeping, you could say, that are waking up as well. Not only is the awakened group that was always there, has that expanded, now we've got help and support, and it looks like everyone's coming together against one common enemy, you know. All of our differences are put aside, you know, where ethnicity, race, class, it doesn't matter anymore. Everybody knows that something is really, really rotten, and that humanity is got to come together.
None of this stuff passes the smell test.
No.
It stinks to high heaven. And we've been saying, if there isn't a political solution, if there isn't a legal solution, and the judicial is not the answer, what is the answer? That people will finally come together in a unified voice and say no more.
When enough is enough.
When enough is enough.
Enough.
Where's that line? Because I sat in front of a law officer and I asked him, sir, what line will you draw that you will not cross? That when the government says you must do this, you would say no. His answer shocked me. He said, I don't know, but we're not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I think it's important, if you would agree, I don't know, or disagree, that we must know where to draw those lines. Ronald Reagan said famously, there is no price we will not pay for freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
That has to be as true today as when he spoke it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. He, in the early days, he was a real truther. He said some gems. He left some gems for the world. So, yeah, we're not there yet, obviously, but we will be.
Yeah.
This is the thing. No one should lose heart. I've never ever been negative about the future. I've never ever said, we're going to lose this. Always in all my work, there is optimism, always. Because I know, I feel it in me, that I've been through this before, and I'm sure many others have. We are the winners. We win. There's nothing like humankind. There's nothing like this creation in the heavens. We're very, very, very special.
In your broadcast earlier, you touched on fear. And it's a very real emotion. And in the last 2 years, we have been conditioned into fear. Fear is a paralyzing emotion, as you know. What do you think of this? When we finally arrest our ultimate fear, our immediate fear will never overcome us. Our ultimate fear is what will happen to us. What will happen to us in death.
Yeah.
And when we know that, when we have the answer to that, can anything in the present really cause us to fear?
No.
And is that not the most liberating time in your life to know that you're not afraid anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. When you lose the fear, it's a big thing, but you have to. It's only a technique. It's only a technique. If you can remind yourself in the day, when you wake up every day, just say, hey, all right, I'm anxious. Why? Stop yourself, think about it, and say, do I need to be? Because usually everything you're anxious about and fearful about that's coming tomorrow, it doesn't turn up anyway.
False expectations appearing real. Fear.
Totally opposite comes. And
I bet you about 80% of what we fear doesn't even happen.
It doesn't. That's the thing. So it's kind of a conditioning from school days.
It has to become a conviction in our heart and in our soul. You talked about the triangulation. I've always believed in body, soul, and spirit. And when we connect those things in a powerful way, a triangle is a very powerful figure.
Yes, it is.
And when we have all three of those in balance, I think we're empowered. I think we truly then begin to live free.
We're invincible. We really are. And we have to know that. Not just think it or believe it. Belief doesn't cut it. We have to know that we are invincible. When you look at your frail body and you've thought about all the sicknesses that you've had and all the doubts that you've had, these might cause you to not know that. But you must know, we must know that we are invincible. Whatever we wish, whatever we desire, as long as it's in accord with God's will, it will be ours. It is ours.
I think we always have that opportunity to stand on the shoulders of those who've gone before us. You've invested most of a lifetime in freedom fighting, standing up and against the evil, speaking power to truth. What is your, or truth to power, let me get that right. What is your final advice to the people that, because this is not a Canadian thing, it's not an American thing, it's not North American, it's worldwide. Yeah. What do you say to the people out there that are fighting in their little neighborhoods for that little piece of land, that little bit of freedom? What's your encouragement to them?
Yeah, well, I would say to always believe in themselves and in the truth that they know. Because that's what you've got. What you are is the truth that you are and who you are. And always believe in that and always project that in the world. So you don't have to comply. Everything is about contract and consent. You don't have to make any contract with anyone you don't want to. You don't have to consent with anything that you don't want to. And you have to learn those ways and then persist in those ways. Never, ever, ever give up. Ever.
Santos, it's been an honor to meet you. Thank you so much for doing this. God bless you.
Thank you.